Welcome everybody to Talk Horror to Me. This is episode number 4. I am a co-host, Matt, with my other co-host, Chrissy. Say hello.
Oh, hi there.
And today we are reviewing the Shudder original, Destroy All Neighbors. This, I think, is 100% Shudder original. I don't think it's on anything else. This movie came out, what, just like a week or two ago. I think it was,
Yep, 2024.
yeah, 2024. So brand new out for 2024. 100% Shudder. Not available anywhere else that I'm aware of. It's not in theaters. Nothing else. It's Shudder. Shudder AMC Plus. What? However they group those together now. So, um, I don't know. Should we really quickly just kind of do the trailer and then start
Yes.
going into it? Okay, let's do the trailer.
See what this movie is about.
Yeah. So there's quite a few people in this that are recognizable. Some are in it
Mhm.
a lot more than others. Some are very much so a uh, cameo, if you will. But I think you did the description of this movie kind of last time, so I guess I'll just run into it real quick and then I'll shut up.
Yeah.
But basically, it's about a struggling musician, and he works in a sound booth and kind of lives in a crappy apartment with his girlfriend. And sure enough, a really weird, kind of crazy, loud, noisy, obnoxious neighbor moves in next door.
Like
Um,
grotesque looking.
yes, yeah, you can see some of them here in the trailer. His name is Vlad. Has tons of prosthetic, stuff on him. He's played by Alex Winter, which from Bill and Ted fame, as well as a ton of other '80s movies, and probably one of my favorite or most notable, which I know you haven't seen, called Freaked. He's completely unrecognizable in this makeup and everything like that. But
Hmm.
anyway, he's just kind of this completely obnoxious neighbor, and as you can see, something flips in our boy William here, and he starts kind of falling into, I guess, what we consider accidental murders. Um,
Manslaughters.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Manslaughter. Excuse me. Yes, they correct him even in the movie. He does not like to go by murderer. He's a manslaughterer. Um, and so there's all these kind of accidental murders, manslaughters throughout the movie, and eventually he's kind of haunted by all of these. I One thing I couldn't really discern from the movie, and I read in a review that sort of corrected me, but they sort of allude to them actually being there kind of as monsters, but then at times it's like, oh, it's all in his head sort of thing.
I
um,
couldn't tell if other people could see them or not.
Yeah, so and I think that's kind of by design. It works really well while doing that, and so um, I don't know. So basically, what he does is he goes around. I saw a reference. They called them Deadites, but he has this whole Deadite uh, music band, and it sort of ends in a big giant concert on him creating and becoming a successful musician while all of these
Uh,
hijinks are going.
Frog rocker,
Oh yeah,
to be specific.
prog rocker. Yeah, there's a lot of prog references in this, which I think is really really funny. So a lot of prog rock. Um, but that's kind of it. So it's a lot of hijinks. It's a lot of monsters. It's a lot of my favorite practical effects.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna love this because
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is cool to look at.
it's gritty. It's weird. It's goopy
It's
and
funny.
slimy and dirty. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I go. I'm gonna give you a minute to speak. I just rambled on for 20 minutes. I don't know. What are you thinking about it?
This movie was fun. It was like I enjoyed watching it. It was cool. It had like really pretty effects actually, and I think a big part of the effects too were the sound. Like I just remember a lot of the like squelching noise, like when the body parts would be moving and stuff that were like not together anymore. So basically, to get more into the details of your recap that you already did, this neighbor moves in and he's like ridiculous. Like he doesn't seem real. He just it seems like really big and it looks like you said a ton of prosthetics. But then when you see him later, when the cops are there, he just looks like a normal person. And so it's like, I wonder if this is just this William guy's like perspective of what he thinks he looks like, because he doesn't seem to actually know or pay attention to anybody.
Yeah, there's a really interesting. I was kind of thinking about that, but there's kind of a really interesting point where a trigger flips in William. Like clearly he snaps, right? And there's kind of this real like the movie feels almost like it's in gray area. Like you don't know what's real and what's actually
Right.
happening and what's
Yeah.
like in his head kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I love that. And it because at the end of the day it doesn't really matter. Like the plot in itself isn't hinging on some, Shyamalan twist revelation of, oh, they were really there or not. That doesn't matter. It's just really weird and all over the place, and it like, I don't know, it gelled. It didn't have to focus on it too much, and then it also kind of didn't really matter at the same time. It was just like,
Mhm.
keep rolling with it, and you'll get there. So
Well, and a thing I really liked about this movie is it moved quickly. There weren't really any like down parts where you're like, okay, what's happening? Like there was just event after event after event after event. And you kind of got character development like really quickly without them having to spend much time with anyone. Like the dialogue was really purposeful, and the costuming, like I always pay attention to, was really pretty, and the practical effects were really pretty too.
yeah, that's why I was gonna hop over here really quick, kind of to our character slide. So on the left here, this is Vlad. This is played by Alex Winter, completely unrecognizable Alex Winter,
Because he
and
plays another role too.
he
He was
does.
what was it, the lawyer?
Yes, it's a lawyer or a
Legal.
prosecutor, something. I don't
Yeah.
remember what he was credited as, but um, yeah, which he has nothing on, right? It looks very exactly like him, but you can tell he's completely in prosthetics from, I mean, everything: face, chest, arms, hands. All of the stuff
Mhm.
is all a prosthetic, unrecognizable, and he does a really weird accent. He said it was a Romanian accent. It was based
Because
off of
there's
where
like
his family.
European, yeah.
Yeah, he said it was a very specific Romanian accent, which is where his family's from, and he wanted to honor that. And he got a vocal coach and
Oh
everything to like
wow. Yeah, it
do
was
it.
good. I had no clue it was him until I was like, wait, is he, because I'm like, he's in this more than just this little role. He has to be.
Oh yeah, it's him. Oh, so you didn't even know it was him until,
No.
okay. Yeah, and then there's obviously this beautiful picture of Jonah Ray, which is William over here, which is the back of his head. I picked the worst picture of that for some reason, but this kind of gives you like a quick little taste of the of like the cinematography there. I think it's a really pretty shot. There's a lot of pretty shots like that with a lot of, I would consider them like clutter or things in them. It just feels kind of like gritty, and I don't know. Can reach out and touch it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then really
Like
quickly,
really feels like really lived in. Like that's what
yeah.
these would actually look like.
And the apartment is basically the main, area that they're in a majority of the time. And here you can see some of the other different shots that they have. There's a lot more Vlad and William. Couple of the other monsters, quote unquote monsters, deadites, I don't know, whatever, making appearances in here. Uh, it is definitely a gritty, gruesome. I don't know what you, kind of gross looking film. They do a lot of filters and things
Uh-huh.
to make it look drab and ugly, and just it feels dirty. Dirty is the only term I can come up with. It's grimy and gross. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah. What do
because
you have to
okay,
say?
so going back to like what actually happens. So he ends up manslaughtering like all his neighbors in his apartment. It starts off with like you meet him and his girlfriend and they're like cute, and then he like goes off to work and he seems kind of absent-minded, and then you see like the apartment down the hall is being emptied out. So then that night he like has a terrible situation at work. It's just like really weird. And so you feel like you, I don't know, trying to get to know this character, it's like, okay, who is this guy? Like, you kind of feel bad for him. You kind of like him. There's really not a lot going on, but like, you still kind of, you're interested. And because he's not like a bad guy, there's nothing like mean or anything about him.
Inherently bad. Yeah.
Right. And so then this new neighbor moves in and he's just like ridiculously loud. And there's like this shot of him like just bare arm carrying this couch in, and he's all big and burly and hairy, and so the
Loud.
guy,
Loud is
right.
another.
So William just keeps like kind of spying on him, and he's like immediately annoyed and like kind of trying to like spy on him, and the girlfriend's just like, leave him alone, like it's fine, it's not really bothering anything. So I'm trying to gauge, like, it was loud, like the amount of noise and the kind of noise that was being made, and for the girlfriend to just be like, no, nothing's going on, like it's fine. You start to automatically wonder, is this guy kind of going crazy? Like, is he
That's
just hearing it louder than other people?
well, and that's what I'm saying. I couldn't tell, and that's what's great about it is like if it's an extrapolation of what he's feeling or what he's thinking. It's like you're right. To other people, they're whatever, deal with it, not a big deal. But for him, it's the one thing stopping him from making music or just even being able to think. That's all he can
Mhm.
hear is this loud, just burly neighbor with super loud music, and he's always grunting and working out and all just. And I mean, this is basically after like a guy living there for like a day, right? And he's just
Mhm.
going nuts from this neighbor being there a day. The landlady wants nothing to do with it. She's saying
No,
take
she
care.
wants this guy to take care of like everything.
Yes.
He does like a lot of her chores and stuff. But you don't like, you're not annoyed by her. She just seems like, hey, help me out. Like,
She
none of
she
these
seems like a total
characters are
hippie.
detestable. Yeah, like you
Yeah.
like all of them.
Yeah. So it's just kind of interesting, but that's where the conflict really starts. You can tell William music is supposedly his life, and he's been working on this album for a really long time, but not able to finish it or have the motivation or inspiration to finish it. And along comes this really loud, noisy neighbor that constantly is distracting him from doing this. Um, from there, I guess the events unfold. He finally decides to confront him. He works up
Mhm.
the courage to bang on the wall once, just one fisted hit, and all of a sudden, the music cuts, and you can just. I loved that scene because the music cuts instantly, and you see this like stomping, like you can feel him walking through the wall and down the hallway to come
Right.
confront
Like you
William.
can follow his pace along by
Yes.
like wherever the dust is coming from or like the noise.
And yeah, that was great. There's a lot of that. I'm trying to think of like it's almost like feels very Crash filmmaking. It's just like on the nose. They want you to visually feel it.
Yeah.
It's not just that hey, we're gonna watch it and do it with sound. We're gonna make that video kind of
Yeah.
work with the audio.
Hmm.
Um, and that's one of the based on one of the movies that I recommend. If you like this, you'd probably like that. This totally feels like Alex Winter, and I found out that Alex Winter not only is in this, but he actually produced it. He was like the
Oh,
producer of
really?
it. Yeah, and this movie was definitely a connection of a lot of people that like knew each other. It was a network of people who knew each
Uh-huh.
other, and that's how they kind of got involved because this was not like an Alex Winter project that he'd been sitting on. It was he got approached and they're like, hey, would you be willing to produce it? And they were like, yeah. And then he wasn't even supposed to be in it, and then they started talking about the characters and stuff, and he was like, they're like, oh, would you just like to be this character? And he's like, yeah, totally, I'll do it, sure, sounds good. So it basically starts out with the confrontation, and um it turns into something more. It eventually evolves into a very threatening kind of like you should have been a man, William. You should have just come over and talked to me and yada yada yada. When he eventually goes and does that, that's when you turn it. It turns into an accidental manslaughter. Is that what they're calling it? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cause it's weird because it's like the guy Vlad is like making him fight. So they're like fighting, but because he's like grabbing his arm and hitting his own face with it, kind of thing, where he's like staging the fight, but then he ends up.
He's trying to make him manly. He's that guy. He is like the epitome of Vlad is this epitome of like a manly man, take no shit, and so you can tell he's almost playing with
Like
William's
he's
like insecurity. He
because he was like
wants William
bench
to punch
pressing,
back.
uh, like the big,
Concrete
big
buckets. The Home Depot.
buckets of concrete,
Yeah, they're Home Depot buckets full of concrete, and he's bench pressing those in his apartment. So, and he's just grunting every single push.
and it's red. Like the lighting in there, like you were talking about the visualizations of just like it just feels so cramped and sweaty.
Yeah, and he has really loud EDM music on. He's got like three TVs on, one of which has just nudity. I don't know if it happened
Yeah,
to be
something. Yeah,
yeah, I don't know if it happened to be like an actual, bumping scene from a movie or if it was, corn or
adult,
what. I don't know.
right?
Um but yeah, he's just this really weird like gross manly man. And I don't know. It's very strange, very strange guy, and so it busts out into kind of a fight, like almost a childish pushing on the playground kind of thing, and something slips, and it impales Vlad. Vlad the Impaler. I didn't think about that. Vlad the Impaler. Vlad gets
That's
impaled.
pale.
Just put that together right now, and he
Yeah.
sort of starts like dying, and William happens to be in that scenario, and it's like an oh shit moment. And he gets convinced to take care of it himself because that's a rock star lifestyle thing, right? He's
Yeah.
he's constantly influenced by this little um, video on his phone from a rock star. I can't remember. It was some fake guy. Do you remember what his name was?
No.
Yeah, so he keeps trying to motivate himself with a fake video on his phone, um, that's just like from a rock star from the past, and he's talking about the rock star lifestyle and things that are involved, and it goes into a tutorial on how to take care of a somebody that was killed because that's a thing that happens when you're a rock star, and so he's convinced to just chop this body up and take care of it.
Which conveniently, right before this confrontation happens, William's girlfriend left. Like she got mad. She was annoyed with him at how like annoyed he was with this new neighbor. And so she wasn't there. So he was able to go and get what do you use? Like a sawzall?
Yeah, it was a sawzall. Yeah, but it has the teeniest blade. That was the one thing that I was like, "Are you kidding me on this?" Like, even because I use like Diablo blades that are like this long, and I'm like, "Get that blade! You could have spent the $8 on this blade." It's not. I'm not even kidding you. When you watch this, you'll see it's like a 3-inch blade. I'm like, "There's no way he chopped up a whole body." I guess it adds to the comedy of it, not being
Right.
realistic, but yeah,
So
it
then
was.
he proceeds to chop up the body and he has it like all stacked up in the bathtub, I think in Vlad's apartment.
Because
And then the head
he's gonna
starts
melt it.
talking to him.
Yeah, yeah. So it kind of like pieces itself back together in a mound, and the head starts talking to him. Vlad starts talking to him again, and that's where you don't know if it's in his head, if he truly went
Mhm.
crazy. I think that's the first point. It's like, did he go truly crazy, or did he like, is this a real monstery thing that's
Mhm.
happening? Um, yeah, I don't know. It looks prosthetically, it's so good. It looks weird. I
Yeah.
mean, they do a lot of stuff with like the hand is separated from the head, so the head kind of comes up and pushes up the head, and all this weird stuff.
It
I
looks
love
so
that.
cool though. Like yeah, the hand moving, like it's just like you really feel like it's that person actually.
Yeah, I you can tell they do the age old trick of like they buried Alex Winter in something, and all that's
Right. Like
there
it
is
was a
like
big
the head.
pile of his body parts.
Yes. Yeah, there's a pile of his body parts. There's another scene where the head is sitting on the couch, and you can tell like, yeah, Alex Winter is like sitting in the
Or on the
couch, and they
shelf.
cut the
Mhm.
cushions. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, like, I love that. That's like, I don't know. It's so dumb and it's so easy to understand like how it was done. It's completely like first year film school kind of tricks on doing things, but
Mm-hmm.
like with an actual professional budget and people who know how to make, movies. Um, so I loved it. I don't know, everything, almost every way that this was shot, the way the characters were done, prosthetics, aesthetics, if you will, all of it looked. I don't know. It was great. There's plenty for me to chew on. What did you think
Mm-hmm.
about the What did you think about the pacing?
I thought it was great because, like I said earlier, there was never like a downtime when you're like, okay, let's keep moving. Like it was always very like, here's the next scene, here's the next scene, here's the next scene. And like any scene was never more than like maybe 5 minutes. And then it would cut to something else or change to something else. At least that's how like I feel. Maybe it wasn't that quick, but I do feel like it moved fast because it got a lot in there in the what hour and a half that it was.
Yeah, okay. I agree with that. I think it was like every 5 minutes. Something. I mean, you're right. It had to have been 5 10 minutes. I can't think of a location that lasted longer than that. I mean,
Right. And
maybe in
he
the
went
apartment,
to the
but
same locations.
yeah, he's
Maybe
constantly in
bad.
hijinks.
Yeah. But other than that, I feel like they were all really quick. And then it was changing to, okay, the next thing we're doing.
Hmm. I'm trying to think of like anything that was long. There's other scenes that it's like I think they're there for comedy, and that's why I feel like it is like the I just knew somebody, like the Kamal Nanjiani scene. He's like a security guard,
Right?
like
Yeah.
in like a booth, and he pulls up and he's like trying to convince him to let him in, and he's arguing back and forth, and then they get into a bribe, and the bribe's not good enough, and it's just like nuts. And eventually he leaves, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, well he'll come back here. Nope, doesn't come back there. Like that was it. It was five
He was
minutes with
the
Kumal Nanjiani, and then he's gone. And it's like, okay, somebody knew somebody. They called him up, and they're like, hey man, can you put on this stupid costume and stand in this booth for 5 minutes, for a couple hours while we shoot this thing. There's a
I
lot
know,
of
I was surprised when I saw him. And then
yeah,
he was actually the smelting refinery guard. Because he was trying to
yeah,
take
that's it.
the body there to try to smelt it down so it would stop talking to him, right?
Yeah, that's it. That was it. That was the initial thing. Was he was gonna try to smelt the bodies,
Yeah.
and then he was going to. Then he settled on like melting the bodies with acid, and then or no, it was melting the bodies first. Then he was gonna smelt it, and then he dumped them in a ditch. Like that was the thing.
And then he ended up hitting that like homeless guy with his van, right?
Yes, he backed over him on because Vlad's hand pushed the pedal, and you don't know if it was Vlad or he
Okay.
did it. Yeah.
Right.
So it was
And
kind of weird. All the deaths are definitely quote unquote accidental. But it
but
was
then the
really
weirdest thing though is they like immediately after they die, they just like are back and
yeah.
they're talking and it looks good. Like like you want to think it's real, but nobody else interacts with them
Well, and I have
or
something I have
reacts to them that I remember.
well I have something to say to that, but I guess my parents were picking up Flynn, but Flynn's like throwing a fit. I gotta get him upstairs. They just dropped him back off, so I have to pause. I will edit this out,
Okay.
but I have to get him from outside. So hold on 1 second.
No worries.
Frankie, come on. This is why we need a third host.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know. My son, he was just like, my parents picked him up, and then he's like, I don't want to go to your house. So it just instantly
Oh.
was like, drop down here. So anyway, um, I'll take a break because I'm gonna cut it. So on the point of driving over the homeless man, right before that happens, doesn't he see Vlad or says something? He like hears something that Vlad said in the van, right? Am I crazy?
No, I think so.
So that's what I'm saying is like, it feels like some people, I guess out of anybody that could hear him, it would be the crazy homeless man, right? The one that he thought was crazy, but like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like some people can see him and some can't.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'll have to go back and look at that.
I don't know. I want to go watch that scene again now.
Uh, like the end of Boar. Um,
Do you? I can't believe you threw that back in my face. I will.
well,
You know what? I'll go
we
watch that one
still have
too.
not talked about whether that was true or not.
Well, I wanted to leave it up for the mystery. Okay, then that way the viewers could figure it out.
Okay.
So-
Okay, so then back to the movie. So they would like he got run over and then all of a sudden he was talking to them and then the rest of the movie he's just like this dead guy with a tire print across
Yeah,
his and it looks cool.
big gory
But then
thing.
it's like, why are these people doing it? Because it happens to two more people in the building after that. The landlady, because
She
he
fries
finally
herself.
like stood up to her and was like, I'm not gonna help you. And then so she ends up dying doing the chore that she like would have asked him to do. Oh, and he finds out that she was really into prog rock. And so then he's like, oh my gosh, maybe I should have given her more time to like talk to me. And then she comes back, and I don't understand why, because like you said, she did that to herself. And then
But
there's one more neighbor too.
yeah, but I think the thing was that William was the one who was like wiring it really funky to to take care of the
Oh,
house.
okay. So that's why it was
So
would be manslaughter
yeah,
then,
so
because
she
it was
got
his
she got
fault.
she got fried trying to fix an electrical problem that
Yep.
he had
Okay,
been
that makes more sense.
fixing for however long, and she inadvertently got fried doing that. So she's this big melty skeleton lady, which you can kind of see in one of the pictures here.
With like her droopy eyeballs.
Yes, that always look weird. They're one's always facing a different direction and stuff, and yeah. So there's that, and then there's they call him like the pig man, right? His name's Phil. He gets outraged.
Yeah,
He
because
gets
he has a pet pig.
he has a pet pig, and he gets outraged basically because he doesn't know his name, and he's playing music or something in his apartment, and so they get into a fight, and William, I guess, the guy attacks him first, so in self defense, William kills him, stabs him
With
with
the
anything he
records
can
that the
grab.
guy's breaking. Yeah.
Yeah, stabs him with anything that he can get his hands on, and so now this guy's dead. So now we're at four people dead, and well, in all of this craziness, he gets convinced by the dead people to finish his album, and so he goes down to the recording studio that he got fired from to make this album with all the dead people, the Deadites, and makes this amazing song, gets caught by the police, and then wins awards for his album while in prison, kind of thing is how it ends
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So like the girlfriend comes back at one point and sees the dead body. I forget whose, but then she gets the police. He gets arrested, but they couldn't find the bodies. And so that's when he's with the public defender guy, and is the guy Alex Winter, and he's like, well, you know what? You're free to go. They didn't find the bodies. And then so he's like, what? So then that's another, okay, can we see them or not? Or can other people see
Yeah.
them? And then, but then when they're at the studio, you know that his boss or his ex-boss, and then Caleb Bang Jansen, you have to say his full name.
I have to say his
I
full
don't
name.
understand what that whole scenario was. It was great though.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this guy is totally being taken advantage of. And like, he like cares about William, but he's being controlled by this other guy. But they see him because he throws Vlad's head at him.
That's right. See, that's what I'm saying. Is that there's this really weird. You don't know how much of this is in William's head, how much people can see or not see, who's even real at this point. It's all crazy. I mean, like in my mind, it's almost like, did anything even happen after the initial confrontation, right? Or is this all like in William's head as something that
Right.
he was doing or played it out, or like, oh my god, if I confront this guy, all of this shit is gonna happen, kind of thing, right? Like you don't know that, and there's no like at the end, oh here's the twist, it actually was innocent. There's none of that, and there almost doesn't need to be. Um, and I'm wondering if that's why reception wise this is kind of all over the place, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because it feels like a crazy movie. As we said, pacing is great.
Yeah.
It moves along very well, start to end. There's not really a lull anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, cinematically, it's interesting to look at. Uh, creatures, gore, all of that stuff, you know, grade A, top notch. It's just that I guess it's the conclusion piece that I think people are getting at, is like, how the hell does this story fit into anything? And to me, I'm like, that's kind of why I love it. Is it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to say, like, hey, I like a movie where the story doesn't even matter. And it feels like in this case the story kind of doesn't matter. It's just the
Okay.
day in a life of this guy that progressively gets in crazy situations and keeps dealing with it. He just keeps dealing with it, dealing with it, dealing with it, dealing with it, and it just gets nuttier and nuttier. And I love that. I think that's really hard to write for too.
Because there is like a big climax at the end, like where you said, where these dead guys are and helping him record his song and album, and there's a standoff with the police because he's like has the oh, what are they called? The hostages. And they're negotiating, and his girlfriend comes and she's on like the megaphone and she's like, I don't want to be here. They made me come. But then she like helps buy him time by like telling this ridiculous story. And so like she's helping him. But then he goes in and he records a song, and it's like all the different guys are playing the different parts. But then doesn't Vlad like turn evil on him? And I wasn't really understanding what happened at that part.
That's, yeah, exactly. So Vlad kind of, and so this is a weird way of looking at it, and I think this is my way of rationalizing such a funky ending. Is like, this was all a big test and a final push from Vlad to make William not a pushover, to like make him follow through and get stuff done, because that's the Vlad way. That's what Vlad does, right? Vlad does whatever he wants, just gets it done, does the thing. He's the manly man. William is not that. So all of this is, in my mind, kind of like one giant push or test from Vlad to make William actually get shit done, and
Right.
whatever. And so at the very end there, I feel like that's the thing, is Vlad admits to calling the cops on him, for this hostage situation, and he's saying like, "You'll never finish this album, William. You'll never finish it because I called the cops and blah 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 blah." And to me, that was the final, like, now you're on a time limit. You have to get it done, right? If you don't defeat me, you will never get this done. Your dreams will die, whatever. So it's now or never.
Okay.
It's now or never, right? Defeat the bad guy in your life and get this shit done, or don't. And that, I think that's what they were going for. I don't think it was spelled out all that great at all.
Yeah, because at that point it just moved so quickly and went so fast, because then all of a sudden cut to he's in prison.
Yes.
And I mean, he looks good. His little beanie is a nice, cute
Oh,
touch.
you liked him.
But
Okay. All right. I see.
no, I just thought I thought he actually, I liked his look more in prison than outside of prison. Um, but maybe that's because he did go through that transformation that you had just talked
Maybe.
about, where he kind of took ownership. And he's watching an awards show where his album won, and then it ended up being his the recording studio, the boss, and then that other celebrity, Caleb Bang Jensen, who
They accepted the
were
award.
accepting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accepted the award on his behalf because they did credit him. They did credit him.
Hmm.
So it's not like they stole his album or something and made a bunch of money off of
Right.
it. But yeah, and so then it kind of it has a very kind of cutesy ending, with him in prison and him getting a toy that he was annoying people with kind of in the beginning. Um, and it's just one of those movies. I don't really know how to describe it. It's one of those movies. It's on the slide. It's an hour and 26 minutes. It's not even movie theater. Time syndication time. You need 90 minutes in order for it to become a feature film. It's only an hour and 26 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not even 90 minutes. The pacing is crazy fast. For not even an hour and a half of a movie, it's like a blast to run through. I
Yeah.
guess the one thing, this is a Shudder original. It's we're trying to talk horror here. This movie, not remotely scary at all.
No,
Not that kind of
there were
movie.
no parts that I was like, oh, this is scary. So I hesitate to even call it comedy horror because it's not a horror
It's kind of like it's like a dramedy. It's like a comedy drama kind of thing. I don't know.
with a lot of gore.
Yeah, it's very gory. And I don't even say it's like very gory. It's like very goopy. There's slime
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. Like the effects of the like squelchy noise of, because then at some point Vlad's like intestines became arms or
yeah.
something when they were in the studio, and it was fun to watch. He is held accountable for murder though, right? Like he got 3 consecutive life terms, so they must have found the bodies, which means he actually did kill or manslaughter those people.
Well, but so here's the thing though. It's like yeah, maybe he killed the people, but if he's recording an album and there's a band of 4 people behind him, it wasn't just a solo album that won awards and stuff, right? Like,
What if
and
it
how was it
was?
recorded if the 2 guys were tied up and you had the one deadite that was recording and doing all the sound? Like, that's the thing is like you don't know if they're real. You don't know if they're real. Like, there's logic to prove that they're real, but there's also logic to
Yeah.
prove that they weren't real. It's weird and goofy, and that's why I almost lean on the like. It's kind of all in his fucking head and he's making it up as he goes, right? Like he doesn't he's just like and it maybe
Yeah.
it is all just a psychotic break kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know.
And if you had seen, it's like a whole, this is tribute. The song didn't sound anything like this song because it's like maybe what happened wasn't anything like what he thought because he ended up recording the whole thing himself actually.
Yeah.
And
It does have a little bit of
like
that.
if you go back and see what actually happened versus what his brain
I
thought.
will say, I mean, the one comparison that I made, and there's the scene that the screenshot for it is right here. There is a little bit of that Tenacious D kind of pick a
Yeah.
destiny, fight with the devil kind of thing at the end, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it worked. It's a way to just kind of like end it, right? I think even they were like, hey, we want to make this really cool, nonsensical kind of monster, not monster movie, about this guy, and things get progressively worse. And they're like, oh, that sounds great, but how do you end it? And they're like, well, I guess it turns into a big monster, and they kind of like shoot a laser beam out of a guitar, and he's in prison. And you're like, oh, okay, fine, we've got ourselves an ending.
Perfect.
Perfect, perfect.
Because everything's tied up, like other than you don't know what really happened with like the things coming back to life, but otherwise, like pretty much, yeah, that's what'll happen.
Yeah. So I know we're kind of jumping all over the place. I was going to jump into kind of reception for others here. I mean, this is a brand new movie, mind you, brand new movie, and some of this is pretty telling in my opinion. On Shudder, this is currently sitting at 4 out of 5 skulls with basically almost everything in there. I don't know if I've ever found anything that's 5 skulls specifically. Most horror and aficionados on Shudder, I think, are kind of in the 4 out of 5 skull kind of range. IMDb's got it kind of right in the middle, 5 out of 10, basically 5.4 out of 10. Roger Ebert is 2.5 stars out of 5. IGN's a 5 out of 10. Metascore is kind of in the middle there. But that's kind of what's interesting is you can see the user scores are 6.4. They're generally higher. Rotten Tomatoes is much higher. The tomato meter 71% to the 88%. So really, just by like people watching this, people seem to really like it. Critics aren't too crazy about it. People like it. They say not that critics aren't people, but they're not our kind of people, okay? So it's kind of a mixed bag in the middle. It's not utter dog shit on the bottom end from what people think, and it's not something that's stellar and amazing kind of on the top end. It seems to be kind of coasting right in the middle. I'm curious. Did you rate it first last time or did I? I can't remember who went.
Oh gosh. I think. Oh no. Did I go first last time?
Okay.
Or did I don't mind going first. I don't remember
Then go ahead. You go first. You go first.
You gave the description, so I'll give the first
Sounds
rating.
good.
We can go from there from here on out. There's really nothing about this movie that like I didn't like other than it wasn't scary. And I mean that's me trying to be like, "Oh, what's wrong with this movie?" Like looking for things. Like it was fun to watch. The characters were fun, the costuming was pretty, the everything was good about it. Like the sound was nice. It had a lot of sound effects to it that I think really added to the mood. Um and I got closure at the end, which is nice. So I'm actually gonna give this movie an 8.
Ooh.
8, like like laughing screams, like I can't believe that just happened. Kind of
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
exactly.
So something that was interesting, and we didn't talk about this. Okay, so you're at the 8, and I kind of forgot to mention this. Almost everybody that's involved, from both a writer and the director, they don't have a lot of credits. The director, I think, really only has 4 kind of like movies or shorts under his belt. Everything else are music videos. Out of those like 20 credits, everything else
Oh,
is music
really?
videos. Some big music videos, some not. So he's definitely into that, like, make a really interesting 3.5 minute scene with lots going on and telling a story in a short amount of time, which
Yeah.
is totally present in this movie. As you said, you can't really think of a scene taking place in one location for more than 5 minutes. Kind of feels like that. And the other people, one of them was a long-term writer on like Late Night with James Corden, so he was a talk show comedy skit writer. The other guy was a
Yep.
long-term writer on Bob's Burgers. Neither of them have a lot of
Uh,
credits, but those are their writing backgrounds, right? So you start looking at Alex Winter, which is Bill and Ted, a bunch of other stuff. Um, you start getting late night comedy writer, Bob's Burgers comedy writer, and a director that shoots music videos. Like
definitely.
you're all in that, like, hey, how many jokes can we cram in a 5 minute time span, and then on to kind of the next thing. And you really feel that in this, and I like that a lot. It was an interesting approach, interesting group of people making this. I'm gonna be honest, like, I think I'm in. You know what? I mean, you're close enough to where I was at. I would say an 8 out of 10. I think I will agree with
Yeah.
you. I'll do like eight loogie splats onto the door out of 10. There's a whole joke thing.
Oh yeah, we didn't even
Yeah, there's
talk
a whole
about
joke
that.
thing about loogies and this whole dialogue thing about loogies. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think 8 out of 10 works for me. I think that fits. And this is it's a really weird blast for a not even 90-minute movie, and I
Yeah.
liked it. It's a little bit of a roller coaster ride. So the last thing, similar movies, and I'll cut
Yes.
over to that. I said my pick was Freaked, and I know you haven't seen Freaked. I'm gonna have you watch Freaked for sure.
Yes, I need to.
This is an Alex Winter movie. This is actually what forced him into acting retirement. The reception of this movie after the fact. It was not great. He put a lot of heart and soul into it, but this was kind of, in my opinion, at that like 90s movie mark where everything was practical and there was a lot of weird stuff in it, and Hollywood was starting to get kind of real big and serious. It's almost like Independence Day level, right? Like where they
Mm,
started to have these really big blockbusters, and I think it just sort of felt flat. It was like the wrong time. I think today, if Freaked came out as a Shudder original, it'd be a cult classic. It'd be a hit. So I picked Freak. It fits Alex Winter. A lot of the weird prosthetic-y stuff, the gross stuff, goopy
Okay.
stuff that's like in this is 100% from Freaked. 100% from Freaked. And I'll let you go over your pick.
I thought this was similar to Tucker and Dale versus Evil because it was all those events of like the manslaughter. They're not actually killing anyone. These people keep dying around them. And it went in a very different direction. But it was that same kind of series of events of like death, 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 all just because of whatever circumstances of that scene. And it was funny.
That's a big plus. Big
So,
plus.
comedy.
I always like a little bit of comedy in my horror. So those are our 2 recommendations. If you end up liking this, you should probably check those out. And so we're both at an 8 out of 10. I'm gonna, the next thing we're gonna have to do now that we're 4 in, we're gonna get, 5th movie. I gotta get a tier. We're gonna get a tier list, and you can see what our picks are for 8 out of 10. And I think that's gonna help us ultimately, so we're not stacking so poorly in one direction. Maybe it'll reset our like barometer of what we consider great horror movie, not a great horror movie. So I think I'll work on getting that together. But
Oh, cool. Have a tops picks list for each of us, or like a what's it like?
Yeah. So I definitely think this is kind of that 8 out of 10 rate. This is great. It's not scary. There's one jump scare in the whole thing that I recall, but everything else was just fun. It was just a fun,
Yeah.
gory horror movie. I liked it. So.
Well, thanks for talking horror to me.
I love talking horror to you. That's the only thing. That's what I live for this podcast. I eat, sleep only this podcast. But yeah, so go ahead and you can follow us on Spotify or YouTube, which we're constantly figuring that stuff out because we're fresh, with all of it apparently.
We'll get it.
We'll figure it out, and obviously like, comment, subscribe to all of our stuff. But we're always open to recommendations, and we're trying to set up polls kind of on Spotify as well as like read comments on YouTube. So let us know something we should watch. Everything I think we've watched so far has been available on Shudder. This is obviously no exception to that, as it's a Shudder original. I think it's only available on Shudder. So whether it's on Shudder or something else, let us know, and we'll keep watching. And next time, I guess I'll talk horror to you.